Goedenavond iedereen, welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van de Steelboots op deze laatste maandag van februari. Vanavond hebben we te gast David Stirk, onder andere gekend van de Creative Whisky Company, Northstar en samenwerking met Mark Watt. We hebben niet zoveel tijd vanavond, want David is een druk bezette man, dus het zal een speed date worden samen met Stef en met de Hunter. Daar zijn ze al. Oké.
Hi all.
Hiya.
Bart, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, David, are you ready to do this?
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. Let's do this in 45 minutes. So let's start off. David, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it has been a few weeks since we last met during our tasting. So, and I was telling you before, you had a secret that time. Now you can all talk about it. I presume you can say everything you want, except some parts maybe. So there's a new distillery coming.
Freshly announced. Campbelltown doesn't have one for 20 years, and then two come along at once. So. I'm part of the Daarnaast team with Ian and Ronnie and another guy called Roy, and it's really exciting stuff. So very happy to be with these guys.
Okay, but the part of Northstar and First Cask and all those other things, Electric Coo, you keep on doing that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. This is a side project, but yeah, the main day-to-day is still Northstar and occasionally having fun with Mark Watt and doing Electric Coo. So yeah, no change.
So starting a new distillery, you call that a side project?
Yeah. A bit of fun. Yeah. I was saying before the Gunter, I'm very lucky that really the main work is being done by Ian and another director, Ronnie, and I'm sort of coming in on their coattails, if you will. A lot of work has already been done. And I'm coming in to sort of, I don't know, give them a little bit of historical context and a link to Campbelltown a little bit, but really it's mostly their project, and I'll just be there to help as much as I possibly can. So I won't be taking too much credit.
just showing them around in Campbelltown. That's
exactly. I'll be doing the tours. Yeah.
Here lives Mark. Here lives.
Well, it's funny where the distillery is. So if anybody knows Campbelltown, I used to live next door to Glen Scotia Distillery, and between me and Springbank, there's a big green grass area which used to be called the Muscle Ebb, and the distillery that we're building is next to that. So from my old flat, I would be able to not only look at Glen Scotia out my back window, but Daarnaast out my front window. So it really does. It's going home a little bit for me, so it's good.
Okay, cool.
So what is it going to be like, the distillery? Can you tell something more about it?
We're going as traditional as possible. So we're using Cross Hills lock water, same as Springbank and I think Glen Scotia. We are double distilling. We will be playing with peating levels. We have a local farmer on board, and we'll be getting barley, and we'll be trying traditional barley types, which I know are not economical, but they can give quite good results, as Brewer Claddy have shown, and Macallan and people like that. So we will be going as traditional as possible, and very much not trying to make a light style whiskey. We're going to be making a Campbelltown style whiskey. So if you like the fact that Glen Scotia and Springbank and Longrow and Hazelburn have quite a oomph, bit of body to them, that's what we're going for. We're not going for this thin middle cut, easy to disguise with wood. We're going for something that has a lot of oomph about it. So that's our plan.
Like we say in Belgium, balls.
Balls, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what malt drinkers want. I think one of the reasons why we love Springbank so much is because of the batch variation. You kind of don't know what you're going to get from one bottling to the next. I mean, you do to a certain extent, but it's always a surprise, and it's almost always a nice surprise because they don't have a blending lab. They're not interested in continuity and never have been. And I think more and more that's what distilleries are waking up to, that malt drinkers want to see a distillery in all of its character, not just what some blender has as an idea for its brand, you know. So we'll be very much going along those lines, and that will mean, of course, that we'll be trying lots of different types of wood, as many as we can that are reasonable, with probably a backbone of used bourbon and things like that, but as many different kinds as we can.
Okay, let's start off with our first whiskey of the evening. For me, I don't know what the others have drunken before, but you mentioned before we'll start off with the Glenelgan.
Yeah.
So this one is you were involved with the selection of the cars that I know of, but how big is your role in this kind of whiskey brand?
Yeah, so this brand is a collaboration between myself and Win, who own the First Cask brand, and I will select a bunch of samples and send them off to Marcel and Jan and their team, and then between us we'll decide a range, usually of 6. I like the number 6 because you can get 6 in a box, so we'll try and pick 6 whiskies, and it'll go through my selection process to a certain extent, and then it goes through Marcel's very, very stringent selection process, and then we'll pick the whiskies that go into the First Cask. It's going to change in the future, the packaging, so I think you're drinking the sort of the last of that sort of Van Gogh series or Van Gogh series, so it'll change in the future, but yeah, we've had some belters, and that Glenelgan is actually one of my favorites. So it's a straight hogshead, absolutely nothing done to it whatsoever. I think is it 12 years old? And 30, full, yeah, ABV not very high, but the outturn I don't think was brilliant either for the age. 250 or something, I think, off the top of my head. I don't know if it says on the label.
56.2.
Yeah, so not a massive, not for 12 years old, not a massively high ABV. Usually, if you've re-racked, you can lower the ABV a bit by re-racking, but that's just a straight hogshead, just a refill hogshead for 12 years. And Glenelgan, I think, is a great distillery, really good whiskey. It doesn't need masking or finishing or influencing often, sometimes, but not often. So yeah, we were really happy with that one. It's a really nice, easy drinker. And the whole point of the series was to try and have single cask strength or thereabouts at a really affordable price. And I know in Belgium that's impossible with your taxes, but certainly, you know, if you're buying them across the border, we try our hardest to keep the price low in what is an industry where prices now seem to be plucked out of thin air. So that's one of the things that Marcel and I work on. That's why there's no box with it. The packaging is very simple. It's just a nice bottle, a nice label, cork, heat shrink. That's it. You know, keep it really nice and simple. Let the spirit do the talking.
Okay. You guys, you tried it before, or you're just trying it now? What do you think about it?
I think my postman likes it.
What happened with the postman?
He always rings twice and drank my first whiskey.
He always drinks twice.
Yeah. No, the first sample was broken.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was crying over split milk.
My bad.
No problem.
Well, you're missing something.
For this one. David, you mentioned before the Van Gogh series. Are you involved in that part as well?
The whole First Cask series, yes, I'm involved in the whole thing.
So the design, everything around it.
Yeah, it's the same designer I used for when I had Creative Whisky, Katie Coltart, and she now does a lot of work for a lot of whiskey companies. So basically, Marcel and I always struggle with packaging and trying to think up something that just looks good but doesn't cost the earth. We could go and get design agencies to create stuff, but you're often talking thousands and thousands of pounds before you've begun, and that just increases the price to you, the consumer. So Katie, we came up with the idea of because I'd seen it in a movie. Somebody had made a movie using a filter, a Van Gogh filter, and they'd taken a real movie and then turned it into his wonderful strokes and everything. And I asked Katie if she could do that with a label, and she found the software, and that's where these came from. The beauty of it is they look great and they don't cost a fortune, but you can't keep doing it over and over, because it does look all the same and begins to look a bit sort of formulaic. So yeah, we'll change it up for the next series.
There were 2 series with this kind of brand.
I think there were 3 actually. Yeah, 3
actually. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you use most of his paintings as well.
Yeah, yeah. They were all that style. Yeah. Either we did some blends that had Scottish places rather, because what do you do with a blend? You can't use a distillery. So yeah, but I think we're changing it up now. But the packaging's the packaging. We struggle just trying to make it look attractive. We're not really that fussed. We just want it to look okay and not stupid. We're far more bothered with what goes in the bottle and how much it ends up on the shelf. That's far more important to us.
Yeah. David, can you tell us how you started in this industry?
Yeah, I started in 1998. I was asked to come and do tastings at I think it was either the first or second Speyside Whisky Festival, because I'd previously done a tour of Scotland for charity, going around all of the distilleries and getting bottles, and we auctioned them off and did a raffle and stuff. We raised all this money for charity, and from that I was asked to come and do a talk at Spirit Speyside, which is where actually I met Mark Watt. He was working at the Craig Ellicky Hotel. And I think I came back the second year for that one and met the new creators of the Whisky magazine, which the publisher was a guy called Marcin Miller, which some of you may know because he was involved in Karazar and Chichibu and the Japanese gin. And so he invited me to come work for them. I think they were only about 5 or 6 issues in. And I started down with them in Norwich, worked for them for a year and a half. Was then approached by a publisher to write a book. So I left Whisky Magazine to write the Malt Whisky Guide. The idea was that would be a period, sort of like what the Malt Whisky Yearbook is now, but with tasting. So we would include everything that came out that year, and there would be additions to the book, and it would be a big sort of I don't know what you want to call it, a encyclopedia kind of thing. But that never worked. I mean, the logistics were massive. And from there, I very luckily got a job with Cadenheads, and that's when I moved to Campbelltown, and that was in 2001. And I was their cask selector and sales guy, did all their tastings, and worked for them until 2004, and left them. And shortly after that, I started Creative Whisky. So the first bottlings were January 2005 for Creative Whisky, and did that until I sold in 2018.
Yeah, so you're a made man.
Well, sort of, yeah. It's
sort of.
Yeah, I was very lucky that as I met Ian Croucher a few years before that, and I helped him start North Star. And as his business built up, I wound mine down, obviously sold it, and then he and I have remained friends ever since, and did a lot of work together. But when I was out of my sort of business purgatory, it became evident he needed someone to come in and help with sort of logistics and commercial side of the business. So I've hopped on board with him doing that, and since then we've now opened our own bottling warehouse and moved the business on to that kind of area. So it was kind of lucky in that way. I've had a lot of luck in my whiskey life.
You're drinking water. That's
I still have a bad throat from the Glasgow Whisky Festival, because it was all day, and I'm not used to festivals. So you're yelling at people over the din of the festival for 8-9 hours, and the next I could hardly talk. So my voice is still a bit raw.
Did you used to wear a mouth mask as well?
No, we didn't have to. No, it was.
Okay. That makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, it was very silly. You had to wear them in the queue to get in, and then as soon as you got in, you could take them off. It was, yeah, I know, insane. But, as far as I'm aware, no big outbreak or anything, but it's fabulous being normal again and seeing people, and really, really enjoyed it.
So it's not only about tasting and blending whiskies. You also write. You have written some books about Campbelltown and the distilleries.
Yeah, I've written two books published in my name. I've contributed to several others, quite a few articles in Whiskey Magazine and a few other periodicals as well. And used to write for Malt Whiskey Yearbook. The first 3-4 years, I did a big article for them. Don't write for them anymore. But writing, I wouldn't class myself as much of a writer. You know, there are people out there who are very, very good at writing. But I was just lucky to be in certain positions where, so for instance, Campbelltown, nobody had even thought about writing the book on the history of Campbelltown. So, and again, I'm not even a historian. I wish I knew how to approach it better as a historian, but there really wasn't enough information. I published that book in 2004, and I think I even say in the book, if anybody finds any new information, I would love to hear it. You know, I'll buy if it's available, that kind of thing. And since then, I've heard nothing. Not a single news piece, clipping. Nobody's found any files. So if and when I come to rewrite the book, because it's out of print at the moment, I won't be able to add anything other than Glengyle, changes at Glen Scotia, and the 2 new distilleries. There just doesn't seem to be any information out there on the 37 distilleries that existed in Campbelltown. Sadly, I think they've all gone into bonfire pits and landfills, and people we just don't, things that are relative to us in our lives, we don't take any notice. And I always think of it like, if you go forward in 200 years or something, and so if somebody goes back and says, why weren't you documenting all of the oldies and littles that were in your towns and villages? Well, nobody cares about oldies and littles. And I think that's how it was. When you have 25 distilleries, nobody was bothered about recording. You know, they were far more interested in the fact that they were destroying the local environment, often killing people by mishaps. You know, the drunkenness was a problem. So they weren't viewed as positive things like they are today. So it's a great shame. But yes, I've been very lucky with some of the writing.
You know, when I looked you up, I did a little research about you, and I've looked you up. And in the 80s, there was a writer with the name of David Stirk and Ian Henderson who were writing books about golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one of his. In fact, Mark Watts sent me one. He found it in a charity shop for like £1, and he sent me one. But yeah, David Stirk. He lived down in Devon, and he was like the golf historian. And it's funny because my dad and he's also David Stirk. We were on holiday in Devon, and we went to a golf course, and he was a previous captain, and. You know, I was trying to tell the people at the golf course about it and stuff, but they weren't interested at all. But yeah, it was quite. Amazon, I think, for several years had me listed or him listed as the author of my book or something like that. So yeah, funny.
And even the name of Ian Henderson came up.
Yeah, I think that must be a coincidence or something. Again, I'm not sure, but yeah, very, very strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I met Ian very many times actually. I shared a dram with him, and when I did the tour in Islay, I shared a dram with Ian Henderson in his office on Islay at Lefroy, and met him again when he came back to the mainland, and again at Norfolk, because he went down to help the English whiskey distillery make peated whiskey, of which they do to a phenomenally high standard. And what a lovely guy! Such a super nice guy. And it's funny, he had such a grumpy face, but when you got to know him, he was so nice. He was so pleasant, and
someone quite impressed.
Yeah, Shilton. There's 2 of us, me and my dad, but and he's the nice one.
Okay, maybe we can try the second whiskey of the evening. It's a Delaware from First Cask.
14 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a ruby port finish. So the cask straight from Portugal, hence all that color, and probably only in there for 2 to 3 months. When it's first filled port, if you leave it in for too long, you just get a whiskey flavored port, which is no good.
So you mentioned it's in there for 2 to 3 months. So
Yeah.
in the early phase, it was bourbon cask, I presume.
Yeah, or a hogshead, a barrel or a hogshead. Yeah, refill.
Do you use the port for to balance the whiskey?
A lot of this is always a guessing game. You when you get these samples in, and when you get the casks in and you try them, and they're purely distillate driven, the wood is almost non-existent, or it's not done anything to the whiskey. It's still too raw. Then it's a guessing game as to what can work with what, and it doesn't always work. There's quite a few casks that you will move into something very expensive, and it just becomes obliterated, and you'll either find a home for it somewhere else or blend it. Or it's amazing how well those casks work in blending, actually, because there's so much flavor going on. When you add lots of other stuff with it, it blends out very well. And it's interesting that some of these blends that you see on the market that are absolutely phenomenal, full well they've used this way concentrated finishing whiskies with other stuff that hasn't got much flavor, but the mixing of them, the marrying of them creates incredible whiskies. So sometimes the blending of it is far better than the individual sections. You have the converse of that, of course. You have some blends where you know full well that some incredible whiskies went in them. Dewar's released one, I think, called Signature, and this is many years ago, I happened to see the list of ingredients, and it make you weep. But it is what it is, as the guy told me who made it, I don't think I think he's retired now. He said, "Look, we're a blending company. We're not a single malt company." So you can't argue with that. It's sort of like gold parts being used in a laptop, isn't it? Wow, gold's amazing, yeah, but we're a laptop company. We're not a jewelers, So it is what it is.
So the best blends are made by accident, and
I mean, you've obviously got highly skilled blenders. The ones I'm talking about tend to be more of the independent bottler where there is no blender involved. But obviously, you've got blending companies and blenders who are exceptional. Certainly, the ones I did were by accident. I'm not a blender at all.
But you like to cook.
Well, you have a bit of fun, and the two best ones I've ever done were we did one. We used to get all the bits at the end of the bottling, so there'd be a third of a bottle or a half bottle, and we'd keep them on the shelf for ages and ages in case anybody wanted a sample or they came to the office to taste. And then after a while, we would put them into a octave, a 60-liter cask. And we did this for years, and we'd only put the malt in there, wouldn't put any grain or anything else. And then when I opened my warehouse, we bottled it, and I gave everybody who came to the opening a bottle, and people loved it. And we called it the 1,000 cask blends because I guessed there was 1,000 cask in it. And then we started again, and then when I sold the business, I did another bottling, and I gave it to the staff I say staff, there was about 3 or 4 of us. I gave it to them as a leaving gift, along with some other stuff too. And actually, both of them are superb. If you are able to come to the gathering, I think that's in November, the whiskey-based gathering, I'll have both bottles there. So if you want to taste my blending, you can come and have a go at that. So, but it's great stuff.
Okay, let's start off because we are a little bit in time. The next one is the Portundus.
Yeah, so 20 years old, and again a port finish, which is a bit odd for a grain whiskey. But
so What's the reason for that?
Yeah, well, actually, the reason for that is I had quite a bit of it. So we wanted to give a bit of variation to it. And if Marcel was in this group now, he would be telling you straight away that he does not like grain in port or wine or anything like that at all. But I got him to try it, and he loved it. It's added a richness and sweetness to it. Obviously, grain whiskey is often sweet, and that's why people like it when it gets old, because it softens around the edges and becomes a little bit less hairspray and metallic and nail varnish, and becomes a bit more oak and sweet and vanilla and those kind of things. This one, after 20 years and then 3-4 months in the port's added just a barrel load of fruit to the whiskey. It just added so much compote, if you will, made it really dessert. Bulls and David.
Sounds like some kind of strange movie.
Sounds like what my wife might say to me all the time. Well, that's a load of bull. Hello, Jeroen. Hope you're well.
David, how do you get involved in all those different projects? Do they all ask you, or is it just like you're being friendly with everybody and everybody knows David is into that kind of whiskey? How does it work?
I have to say I joined the whiskey industry at the right time and the right place, and so I got into whiskey in 1998. 6, 7, 8. They were the years where I really fell in love with whiskey, and it was just at the beginning of the change in consumer of what consumers wanted and their attitude towards the industry and whiskey. We were losing a little bit of the fuddy-duddy old man drink attitude. I think in 90, I'm trying to think when Signatory started. Did he start 88, 98, whatever it was? Yeah, he maybe started 88 at Prestonfield. So Andrew Simonton was going, and he was offering things that malt drinkers really, really wanted. Cadenheads were already established. Gordon MacPhail was still maybe stuck in their ways a little bit with their distillery label bottlings and things. But even so, there were enough people recognizing that what they were doing was of such high quality and such affordable prices that it was getting a greater mass all the time. And I was, I'm born in 76. So in 96, I'm 20 years old. And I'm just completely in love with the whole industry and everything, and spend all of my student loans on books, which are up here. I've got hundreds and hundreds of books. So at university, I just spent all my time. I couldn't drink whiskey because I couldn't afford it, but I was reading all these books. You name it, and I've got it. I had an old Barnard that's gone now, but I've still got his book. All those kind of things. Just fascinated with it all, and it was just such a great period. You had Ardbeg starting up again. It wasn't long before Brewer Claddy started up again. You had the rare malt series that at the time were £55 a bottle. Now, for me, that was a ton of money, 55 quid, yeah. But it was just about affordable. And the industry was very, very welcoming to young people getting involved because it had had such a period where there was no interest at all. So people like myself and Ewan Mitchell and Ewan Gunn and Mark Watt and Susan Colville, all these kind of people who are similar-ish age, the industry just sort of said, come in, we want young blood, we want youth to get out there and spread the message. And it very quickly became that we were going to countries like Belgium, Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, and speaking to people who were not that much older than us. It really happened within 3-4 years. Mm-hmm. I remember the first few tastings I did, it was like spot the guy under 60 years of age, and it was always men, and then within just a few years, things started to change. I don't know if it was the Whiskey Magazine helping and the general marketing and everything. So just really lucky to have been involved in it at such an early stage. I wouldn't say I was the friendliest or the most open-minded or anything of people out there. I think I was just quite lucky to be in it at such a embryonic period, at such an early period.
Right time, right place.
Yeah, right time, right place. I met the right people, and I had some really good guidance from people early on. I owe a lot to Martin Miller at Whiskey Magazine, who's now, obviously whiskey. What is his gin called? Obi-Wan Kenobi, that one. His Kenobi gin and other things. But yeah, from early on, I'm very, very lucky to have met. I called on people like Jim McEwen and Richard Parsons as friends from the age of 24 onwards. That was pretty privileged to be able to do that.
Cool. Next up, we have a Highland Distillery, 16 years old, 58.3 ABV.
Yeah, so this is Glenmorangie.
You can say that Secret Highland. Oh, it's Glenmorangie.
Well, I'm not allowed to put it on the label, but let's put it this way. In my opinion, this is Glenmorangie. And the funny thing is, I loved it, and so did Marcel. And it's been given some pretty bad reviews by people, some bigwig people. I'm never bothered with reviews and things because it's always one person's opinion, and the amount of times where we've bottled something where somebody might come up and say that was terrible, how could you bottle that, and then somebody else comes up and says, have you got any more? When you're in independent bottling, you are never ever going to hit 100% of the people all the time. It's just impossible. It doesn't matter if you're independent or not. Every distillery will have its detractors and its people who love it. So I loved it. I thought it was really full flavored and had quite a bit of balls, as you say, quite a bit of oomph. Obviously high ABV, 58.3. And this is a first fill sherry for its full maturation. So nothing done to this whatsoever. Again, just like the Glenelgin, this is au naturel.
Mhm.
If you select your whiskies, you get the samples from the distilleries yourselves, or you use bonders?
So all of these I've actually collected the samples myself from a bond. I'm quite lucky that there's a bond about 10 miles down the road from me who will take in all my casks, who have done all these bottlings as well, and they will actually let me come in and say, can I have a sample from that, and they'll draw it out, and I'm able to then take it away. So there's no hit or miss. I know exactly what I'm getting and where it is and what kind of cask it's in. If you can't see the wood, sometimes you do miss out on whiskies. It does help to be in the presence of the cask at times. So this is one of the reasons why North Star's opened its own warehouse. It's very important to have control of things like that. But what do you guys think? And if you don't like it, it doesn't matter.
I like it, but it's a bit different than I'm used to drink from Glenmorangie, because
well, that's good.
it still has that smoothness, but it's different.
Maybe it's because it has this full length and the sherry cask.
Yeah,
The cask is more involved.
Yeah, it is. It is very much involved. No doubt about that. What I should point out is that this really didn't come from Glenmorangie. Yes, they made the spirit, but it was then the spirit was taken away, filled into wood at another company's warehouse.
and it has nothing to do with Glenmorangie.
It's really got that, and in a way, that's why I don't mind the names being taken away, because in situations like that, Glenmorangie will have no control over that product other than the distillate. But as we all know, after 16 years, the distillate's only giving 30% of the character, or 40, whatever it is. So for them to take the name away, well, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It saves.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting because it's that different from the regular style. So and this it's still the main thing is still Glenmorangie. So it's a Glenmorangie, but it's completely different. So you get an idea what Glenmorangie can do if you use something else. Which
is exactly what, as an independent bottler, you're wanting.
Yeah.
You're wanting to show, it's, I always say, if I had something like a Glenfiddich 12-year-old and you and it was in independent bottling, and you picked it up and said, "Oh, that's just like a Glenfiddich 12-year-old," I would, I need to give you back half the money, because you can go buy a Glenfiddich 12-year-old for half the price.
Why do you think some people are not keen on this one?
I don't know. The write-ups. I mean, if you go on Whiskey Base and have a look, there's at least one derogatory comment and one silly one. It was something to do with just the funk of the sherry cask or something. I think one of the reviews accuses it of being a finish, which it isn't. It's full maturation. It's not a finish at all. But it is.
Is it crazy to say that this one gives more character than a normal Glenmorangie?
Yeah, it is. It's a much bigger mouthfeel, I think, than most. So
I enjoy this one.
No negative comments from here.
Good. You can wait till I've gone, then you can say what you want.
no problem.
We will put it on
later on you look back and that's what they're saying. Those tiny bastards.
I've never had a problem with negativity. I bottled in Creative Whisky alone. I bottled 110, 115 different distilleries. You're never going to get it right all the time. And there are bottlings I look back on and I sort of go, what were you thinking? Sometimes you haven't got enough time or money. You need to bottle what you've got when you're very early on. But I from the beginning, I always said, if you really don't like a bottle of my whiskey, send it back or let me know and I'll send you another bottle. And I think in 15 years, I sent 2 bottles to people. And one of those because there was a fly in it. And it was great because it was a Dutch guy and he sent me a video of him taking the fly out and saying, thanks for the other bottle, but I'm still drinking this one. I said, that's fine with me. I'm not bothered with it.
That sounds like a Dutch guy.
As a cook, we have a saying that you can't cook for everybody's mouth.
No, quite.
There will always be negativity around.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's life. You can't be everybody's friend. So
what do you look for when you select your samples? You have some points you look at to say, yes, that's good for me or not? I've always stuck to 2 rules, just 2 simple rules. The first one is, do I want to put it back in my mouth? Has it interested me enough to want to take a second and third and fourth taste? And when it's fully bottled and shipped and taxed and retailed, is it affordable? Would I buy a bottle of it? And they're the 2 rules I've always stuck to, because it cuts out. I mean, if you take the first rule, every single sample, if you don't want to put it back in your mouth, well, that's it, finished. Forget about it, because if you bottle it, you're an idiot, and all that's going to happen is you're going to end up doing a tasting, and people are going to say, "What do you think about it?" And you're like, "Well, actually, I don't like it." Well, why did you bottle it? So that's great. And then the second rule for me ruled out all of the people trying to sell stuff at a price that was unachievable for drinkers. And in 20 years, I've turned down Port Ellens and Ardbegs and Lafroigs and you name it, because I can't do a tasting and tell you that it's 2,000 euros a bottle. I can't do it because I don't buy those bottles. I don't drink those bottles. So, and it's funny, towards the end of Creative Whisky, we were going to do a really deluxe bottling of my old and rare. But by the time we'd looked at fancy bottles and fancy boxes and packaging, it was becoming more expensive than the whiskey. And I canned it. I just said, no, we're not doing this. It doesn't sit with me as a drinker. So,
yeah, it's a nice point of view. Next one up, we're going to North Star, Supersonic. I love the name, by the way.
Yeah. So here you can see a guy who really does packaging well.
Yeah, but it sounds like a 80s Nintendo game. Like, I'm playing Supersonic. What are you playing?
Yeah, well, if you know Ian, he's an 80s guy, so that's not a problem. Ian's passionate about retro, so his loves are skateboards and BMXs, and he's a couple of years older than me, but we grew up in the same era. I was lucky enough to grow up in California, so I'm even more skater and surfer in my blood than him. But no, it's great. The Supersonics, a fabulous blended malt, and just full of all of the flavors of the distilleries that are in it that might be things like Tamdhu and Glenrothes and Macallan and Highland Park. Might be those kind of whiskies.
Might be. Okay.
Yeah, could be.
You're not saying anything.
No, again, just in my opinion.
Are you involved in those kind of mixes? Do you have a say in that? Or just
No,
David
that was
tried
bottled
it
before I joined, and so was the Chaos. But when I joined Ian, I made it quite clear that you don't need any help in this kind of field. You don't need help selecting stuff. The idea is that I'll still continue doing the projects that I've begun and looking at a couple other projects in other markets. But Ian will continue to just do North Star as he's been doing it, because his growth's brilliant, his reputation's brilliant, his casks are fantastic. So he doesn't need any help in that area at all. And I don't
representing the distiller,
exactly.
the North Star. Okay, sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of his brand ambassador to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So.
Because she's also an Oasis fan, I'm right, and Supersonic was their first number one.
Oh God, I hope he's not an Oasis fan. I don't know about that.
You're a Blur kind of.
No, actually, when they were out, I was an Oasis fan, but then I grew up, as we say.
And then you turn to Blur. Okay.
I think you had to do one or the other, and Blur I never got. I just didn't get Blur. I don't know. It just sounded all sort of Benny Hill kind of music to me. London Cockney. Park life.
You grew up, but Oasis didn't.
Yeah, that's right. My musical tastes are ancient compared to Ian's. Yeah, thanks, Crean.
Okay, let's do this. Let's go on to the last one, just so we make it the Chaos one. You have to empty the bottle.
That's always a shame. Bottle kill.
Oh, we have another one.
Oh, good. Good man. Yeah, again, fantastic packaging, and Ian wins awards for this kind of stuff. It's something that he loves, getting awards. Actually, most of them didn't exist when I had Creative Whisky. He and I went to an award ceremony the other day, and he cleaned up. I think he won 6 or 7 awards, but they didn't exist for Creative. We had the Malt Maniac Awards, which you might as well just give everything to Cavalan, and then a few others, and things like Whiskey Magazine. There was no recognition of independent bottlers at all. It really wasn't. That all came later on. But I'm not bothered. I don't do it for the awards. The one award that he's got 2 years in a row, which I think is really good, is Independent Bottler of the Year, and that's been voted for by UK retailers and their judging panel, which is all whiskey people, and that was a phenomenal thing to win, because it was a recognition that Ian and North Star look after the whiskey community, and I don't think it should ever be won by any company that doesn't distribute, doesn't retail their whiskies, that just sell it direct, because that's not looking after the community. There's no good me having a whiskey and just selling it to people in the UK, which you can do, and there are companies who do that, and Ian and I have always looked for international distribution and international partners. And that means you've got to be careful, because you've got to understand all the shipping margins, all the distribution margins and everything else. But we wouldn't be having this chat if Creative, North Star and companies of that ilk didn't look after our fans of whiskey. So I think it was an important award for him to win. It was a good one.
Hey,
Chilton.
What the hell is happening? Okay, we have a special guest apparently. It's Chilton. He cracked our system, so it seems.
David knows about this. I'm used to this.
You just brought a lot more hair to the meeting, Chilton.
That's why it's darker.
Being an Indian guy, is it something involved with Microsoft? Do you do phone calls as well?
I'm not from Bangalore. Bangalore is the IT capital of India. So I'm not from Bangalore.
Freshly back from Israel, I think.
Yes.
That looked amazing at that trip. I didn't realize the casks were in cages. You couldn't do that in Scotland.
No, and also you can't try samples out from it. So you have to get the Wallin chop and suck it up from it.
Yeah, I saw.
So it's pretty clear you guys know each other. You meet except for the last 2 years, you meet a lot. So David, we know your time is up, so you're more than welcome to stay.
But to pass over to the brilliant Chilton. But if you want any more, I'm happy to answer any more questions afterwards. But thanks very much, guys. And
no, thank you very much, and
Yeah,
thank you for joining us, and we will meet
Bye.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
tot ziens.
Ja,
See you later, Chilton.
So here he is. Hi, Chilton.
What am I doing on this show?
If I'm right, we have an appointment a month later.
Being the most beautiful one of the four of us.
I had to. Our people were so bored about this species. They were all getting bored about all this, all the three of you. So I said, okay, let me hijack this.
They wanted a real bearded guy.
Real bearded guy.
Chilton, you're here to announce something. You will be our guest very soon.
Yes, on the 28th of March. Thanks, Gunther. I didn't know what I was doing here anyway. So thank you for reminding me what I'm doing here. 28th of March, I will be with you guys.
Cool. I think we're looking forward to it. It will be about Paul John, I presume, or the other one.
Kabbalah, yeah.
There's a nice song which says somebody I used to know.
I don't know if you know, but it's a Belgian dude who sang that.
So 20th March, look forward to that. I'm quite excited. I'll be actually on the 27th. I'll be not far away. that name I got in Israel because of we were up in Dead Sea and we were actually trying to try some samples out, but you can't get the Wallin chin because of the cage. So I had to go on top, get the Wallin chin, and suck the whiskey out.
Strange photos.
Yeah.
I thought the cages were meant for you.
Well, I would love to be in there, not outside of it.
You couldn't see it on the picture, but he was in another cage. And they showed the key in the Dead Sea. Yeah.
Chilton, we're trying some milk and honeys later on, so next month actually. Is there something you really want us to try?
Yes. Well, as you guys know, and
if you say all, that's okay for us, but you send us the bottles.
No, yes, it's very interesting because we're moving from I moved from a hot country to a very hotter country, and where the whiskey matures quicker. Plus, I have seen one of the things which I will say one day when I was there and traveling to Jerusalem to the Dead Sea, it was not, you could travel just in a day, but it was such a big difference in the temperatures and the air pressure. I was sick in the car, and I was telling them, this is like taking 5 flights in a day for me. That's how much it is. But imagine whiskey being matured in different climatic conditions. And just because in one country you get different climatic conditions, there is something which we love to do. At the same time, using something as a pomegranate wine cask, which is also which we are very proud of, not something which we have tried. Every time I go to a tasting, especially here in Glasgow, I have to carry a pomegranate with me to tell people what a pomegranate is about.
So what's a pomegranate?
Yeah. We'll talk about it. I will send you each one pomegranate to your houses soon.
Okay.
Deal.
In return, I need some pumpkin, by the way.
Okay.
So, guys, we're really looking forward to our next chat on the March 28th. So, to all the viewers, thank you for joining us today. We will meet up within a month. It was a short one. It was 45 minutes today.
It was a chaos one.
It was a chaotic one. And for those who were thinking, why did he start earlier? Because David just for the start mentioned he had to go at 9 o'clock, so we started a bit early. So apologies for that. If you want to try the first one, it was the Glen Elgin. It was supremely. Steph is a big fan of it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
If you have any questions, just send Steph a message. He will tell you all about it.
I will make some recipes with them.
Yeah. So, guys, thank you for joining us, and talk to you later. Chilter, we'll see you in the back, I presume. So we'll have another chat. And to all the viewers, see you next month. And good night.
Gunther, little question. How was Dublin?
You really want that story online?
People want it.
We've seen the pictures. It's okay.
No. They don't have seen all pictures.
Oh, you don't know.
It has something to do with this love. It has something to do with this lovely lady. I don't mention her name, but
Yes.
You should check the CCTV footage in Dublin. It's all over.
We have a secret WhatsApp group, Dublin Private.
Major thanks to him for the pictures.
Send end messages. She will end. So to all the viewers, thank you for joining us today, and talk to you within a month. Good night, be safe, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.